to make the sound, you know, authentical to that old sound of like first Deep Purple albums?
Well, it's not identical, but people tend to say it's the closest thing to hearing Mark I, because nobody ever heard those songs since 1969, apart from maybe one or two of them that were used in the different lineups. But the majority of that music, as the boys said to me when they asked about doing this project, you know, nobody had heard it for so many years live, and one or two of the songs even Deep Purple never played live in those days. So it was quite a challenge, you know. I thought, well, why not? It'd be nice to do this, because the stuff hadn't been heard for so long. And originally it was only going to be one show, but people turned up from other countries and asked us if we'd come to their country and do it as well. So if somebody wants it, we go and do it. But as Chris said, the guys more modern approach. Obviously they're a little bit younger than I am, not much, but just a little bit younger. And you know, they got different influences, and they've added their own touches to the songs, not completely altered them, but put in their own stamp on it, you know, their own mark, which, you know, I think has helped it, helped the performance. And you know, we're having fun with it, so that's the main thing. While we're enjoying doing it and people seem to like it, we'll do it some more.
Ну, опять же, в принципе, повторяется та же мысль, что просто эти песни, их уже с 69-го года никто толком не исполнял живьем, то есть не сами Deep Purple, не как бы, а есть даже парочка вещей в их репертуаре, которые сами Deep Purple тогда еще в 69-м году не исполняли никогда живьем. И поэтому они просто постарались сильно не отступать от классического саунда, чтобы люди именно услышали воспроизведение тех песен в том виде, как они были написаны. И они сыграли один раз, их позвали в другую страну, они поехали в третью страну. В общем, пока люди просят, чтобы они исполняли эти песни в том ключе, они будут это делать. Но, опять же, как говорили другие музыканты, поскольку они все-таки помоложе Ника, неправда говорят, что не намного, но все же чуть-чуть помоложе, у них свое есть влияние какое-то, и они вносят все равно что-то свое, может быть, чуть более современное. Поэтому нельзя сказать, что они прям на 100% эти песни будут вот как в 69-м году.
Спасибо.
Ник, расскажите, пожалуйста, о вашем творчестве в составе групп Фанданго и Крокус.
So can you tell about Fandango and Warhorse? Well, just tell about your experience, like, you know, some stories maybe.
Well, Warhorse was a great band, I thought, and you know, we toured solidly for 4 years, and on the road it worked great, but we had problems with record companies, we had problems with management, the usual story you could talk all night on, and in the end we disbanded after 4 years because we felt we weren't getting anywhere. Which was a shame, because a lot of the bands that used to support Warhorse, and they are sort of household names, you know, they kind of overtook us and became big stars. Fandango was purely a recording project only, it was never intended for the road, and this was at the time when punk music was taking over everything, and nobody would give anybody like me a record deal, and they all said I was too old. I think I was about 32 then, you know, and some guys came over from Germany and they said, you know, we don't like punk music, we like what you do, and I played them some stuff, and we had this record deal with them, and I think both the albums were quite successful. Unfortunately, the record company ended up going bankrupt, and now they're collector's items. So that's the story.
Ну, что касается Warhorse, это была больше концертирующая группа, и они успешно ездили и выступали 4 года. К сожалению, были проблемы с менеджментом, как обычно, не смогли найти выгодные контракты, и в итоге эта группа подкосила. Хотя группа была отличная, и многие их поддерживали, и они надеялись на какой-то успех. Что касается Фанденго, это наоборот как раз был именно студийный проект. Но в те времена как раз расцвел панк-рок, и ни одна звукозаписывающая компания не хотела подписывать группу с таким материалом. И только какие-то немцы нашлись, которые сказали, нам на панк наплевать, мы хотим именно вот такой вот хард-рок. И они с ними подписали контракт в итоге, выпустили несколько пластинок, но в итоге просто, как это бывает в бизнесе, фирма обанкротилась, и теперь эти пластинки достояние каких-то коллекционеров только.
So, Nik, what about Krokus and your collaboration with Don Éiri?
Yeah, well, Quatermass was a project I began with Mickey Underwood, who you probably know played with the Ian Gillan band, and I'd known him for some years, and we decided we weren't going to have keyboards at all. It was going to be purely a guitar band, and then afterwards we thought it needed a little bit of colour, so Mick just said, what about calling up Don Éiri? And so he did it for the session fee, you know. But it was great. He came down and we just said, here's the stuff, Don, just play what you like. And he just listened to it, played along, and being the professional he is, did it so quickly and perfectly, exactly what we needed, you know. So sadly that was another band that was only on the road for a little while because the logistics and the expenses of getting a band like that on the road was just too much. So that was another one that didn't last very long, but I'm quite proud of that album. I think it was a good album, and what Don did on it as well just lifted it to the right place, you know.
Вопрос простой, вопрос.
Вопрос об истории Крокус, вторая группа, которая создана Яном Монтервудом уже в 1994 году.
Так, окей. Значит, Ник ответил, что его туда позвал, соответственно, Ник, который играл с Яном Гилланом. И поначалу планировал, что это будет чисто гитарный проект. Потом все-таки они решили добавить клавиши, позвали как раз Дона. И просто дали ему материал, сказали, вот ты послушай, вот сделай с ним все, что тебе угодно. Мы как бы были очень довольны результатом. К сожалению, опять же, продолжение не получилось, потому что они стали планировать гастроли, и вся, ну, в общем, логистика пошла им не на пользу. То есть они поняли, что они не потянут эти гастроли, к сожалению, поэтому это был очередной недолговечный проект, но он очень гордится самим записанным материалом.
Поступало ли Нику и Атиле приглашение на концерт памяти Джона Лорда?
Question to Nik and Attila. He's asking if you were like invited to take part in John Lord's memorial concert.
No.
Нет. К сожалению.
Тогда можно еще про проект The Flower Pot Man узнать поподробнее?
Okay, what can you tell about the Flower Pot Man project?
Well, the Flower Pot Men, it was a studio band, a bunch of guys that had many hits under the name of the Ivy League. There were two songwriters, John Carter and Ken Lewis. They wrote hundreds of hit records for people, and what they used to do, they would create the record in the studio, and if it was a hit, they would lease the name to a road band in return for some money. And so the Flower Pot Men was purely a studio creation by these guys, and two of the musicians that played on the record recruited two other guys, so there were four singers, and the record went top 10 all over Europe, and they needed a band to go on the road with, because it was just 4 singers. And so basically we were asked to do it. The band I was in at the time was back in Screaming Lord Such, and Screaming Lord Such and the Savages. So we've been working with Such, and the 4 of us just went to meet the singers from the Flower Pot Men, and we all got an okay, so we took it on the road, and it was very successful. The big problem was that using the name Flower Pot Men, I mean, they were linked to the Flower Power movement, and once the Flower Power movement started to die, that was the end of the road for those guys, which was, you know, if they'd have had a different name, they could still be working now on the strength of that hit record. And of course, it was during the, I suppose it was about halfway through the period of touring, which would have been about a year. The keyboard player, he got bad tonsillitis, he couldn't play. So we started using some different guys, you know, just standing in. And one of these guys was John Lord, and he didn't have a gig at the time, and he was sort of pretty hard up financially. He needed the work, so he came with us, and he was there right up to the time he quit along with me to start Deep Purple. So the Flower Pot Men struggled on for about another 6 months, and then that was the end of it. Flower Power kind of fizzled out, and that was the end of the Flower Pot Men. Those guys were redundant.
Can you please repeat the name of the 2 guys that originally started?
Sorry?
The names of those 2 guys that started.
It was John Carter and Ken Lewis. They were 2 of the biggest, most successful songwriters in England. Not many people know their names, but if you listen to the vocal backing on I Can't Explain by The Who, you will hear John Carter and Ken Lewis singing behind The Who. They did lots of session work for other people because they were great singers.
Вот 2 человека, Джон Картер и Кен Льюис, они образовали этот проект. Соответственно, они больше были известны как авторы песен, авторы многих хитов. Это они сделали очередной проект, они обычно просто делали какие-то студийные проекты. Значит, там участвовало 4 вокалиста разных. Соответственно, пластинка попала в топ, и они поняли, что надо этот проект вести, ну, гастролировать. А группы как таковой концертной не было, и они целиком позаимствовали группу Screaming Such.
Screaming Lord Such.
Lord Such, да. Screaming Lord Such. И, соответственно, ездили где-то год, потом у клавишника случился, я так понял, танзелит, и он как бы слетел, и на его место позвали Джона Лорда, который не то чтобы очень хотел там играть, но ему нужны были деньги, поэтому он согласился. Соответственно, они закончили гастроли, но группа, к сожалению, скажем, ошибка была в выборе названия, потому что как бы ассоциировалась с движением хиппи, с детьми цветов. А, соответственно, когда движение потухло, название стало неактуальным и стало дурацким. И поэтому, когда закончились гастроли, Джон и Ник ушли, чтобы образовать Deep Purple, а группа где-то через 6 месяцев потухла.